Most people read Proverbs 3 like a comfort chapter. Peaceful, familiar, soft. But what if Proverbs 3 is also a reprogramming manual? What if these ancient lines are not just religious poetry, but instructions for breaking the mental circuitry of lack? What if the chapter that many people quote for guidance is actually showing you how to shift from inner scarcity to embodied provision? Because here is the truth. Long before money disappears from your bank account, it disappears from your imagination. Long before overflow reaches your hands, it has to confront the fear patterns in your mind. And that is exactly why Proverbs 3 matters. This chapter does not begin with money. It begins with memory. Do not forget. That is the first battlefield. Forgetfulness. Losing your internal map. Slipping back into the old mental groove where pressure becomes your prophet and anxiety becomes your financial advisor. In biblical language, the heart is not just emotion. It is the command center. It is where desire, thought, trust, memory, and action meet. In modern language, you could say Proverbs 3 speaks directly to your inner operating system. It addresses the patterns that govern how you perceive risk, interpret delay, respond to uncertainty, and make decisions under pressure. And that is where wealth begins or dies. If your nervous system is trained in fear, you can sabotage opportunities while praying for increase. If your inner world is wired for scarcity, you can receive more income and still live as though collapse is one step away. Some people call this quantum Bible wealth. Some call it quantum faith. Some search for Bible prosperity secrets, a financial breakthrough scripture, a Bible verse for wealth, even law of attraction Bible ideas. But beneath all those searches is one deeper question. How do I become the kind of person who can receive, hold, and multiply provision without being ruled by fear? Proverbs 3 answers that with shocking precision. My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments, for length of days and years of life, and peace they will add to you. Notice the sequence. Keep, then increase, internal order, then external fruit. In Hebrew thought, peace is not just the absence of conflict. It is shalom, wholeness, alignment, things fitting together the way they were designed to fit. That means divine provision is not just cash. It is the end of fragmentation. It is when your spirit, mind, decisions, habits, and resources stop fighting each other. That is why the chapter moves next into covenant language. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. This is brilliant. Bind them around your neck means make them visible. Write them on your heart means make them internal. In other words, your outer rhythm and your inner script must agree. You cannot speak faith in public and rehearse panic in private. You cannot post about abundance and secretly worship worst-case scenarios. The ancient text is saying, embody the code, wear it, write it, repeat it until your reflexes become aligned with truth. That is how neural pathways change in real life too. Repetition, attention, emotional meaning. What you return to again and again becomes easier to think, easier to feel, easier to choose. Neuroscience calls it conditioning and reinforcement. Scripture calls it remembrance and meditation. Different language, same battlefield. Then we arrive at the core line, the one almost everybody knows, but very few people actually use as a daily rewiring protocol. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. The Hebrew word for trust here is betach. It carries the sense of placing your full weight on something secure, not testing it with one cautious foot, not pretending, full reliance. Then the warning comes, do not lean on your own understanding. The word for lean has the picture of propping yourself against something. So Proverbs 3 is painting a contrast. Put your full weight on what is stable. Stop bracing your life against what is limited. And what is your own understanding in a scarcity season? Usually, it is not wisdom. It is a collection of fear-based conclusions dressed up as realism. I'm too late. There's never enough. If I give, I'll lose. If I rest, I'll fall behind. If this opportunity is not perfect, I should do nothing. If I've struggled before, struggle is my pattern. That is not discernment. That is exhausted pattern recognition. That is a nervous system trying to predict safety from old pain. Proverbs 3 is not telling you to become irrational. It is telling you to stop making your past limitations the lens through which you interpret God's future. Then comes the next phrase. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. This is where things get even more practical. The Hebrew idea behind acknowledge is not a casual nod toward God. It means to know him, to recognize him, to bring conscious awareness of him into the situation. In all your ways. Business, money, timing, purchases, negotiations, giving, debt, opportunity, rest, strategy. Not just church decisions, all your ways. A lot of people want a miracle while refusing alignment. They want God to bless a path they never invited him into. But Proverbs 3 says straight paths are the outcome of conscious acknowledgement. When God is excluded from your financial habits, your path gets noisy. When his wisdom is invited into your habits, your path gets clearer. And that matters because clarity is wealth. A confused mind leaks money. An impulsive mind leaks money. A shame-filled mind leaks money. A double-minded mind misses timing, avoids necessary action, and reacts emotionally. But a clear mind sees what fear cannot see. Think about a person who checks their bank balance 5 times a day, not to steward it, but to soothe themselves. They are not managing money. They are managing dread. Every decision becomes reactive. They delay important conversations. They undercharge because they fear rejection. They cling to small certainty and miss larger obedience. The problem is not only external shortage. The problem is internal fragmentation. Proverbs 3 addresses that fragmentation at the root. Then the chapter says something that makes many people uncomfortable because it touches the wallet directly. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the firstfruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty. The Hebrew word for honor is tied to weight, substance, heaviness. To honor God with your wealth means you treat him as weighty in your financial life, not symbolic, weighty. Firstfruits means first, not leftover. This is not really about religious performance. It is about order. It is about what governs the flow. Scarcity says, I will honor God after I feel safe. Faith says, I establish divine order first, and trust grows from there. That is one of the deepest Bible abundance, manifest principles in all of Scripture. Not because giving is a trick to force heaven's hand, but because firstfruits retrain identity. It breaks the lie that survival depends only on your grip. It retrains your mind to live from source, not just supply. And when that mindset becomes embodied, something changes. You become less chaotic with money, more intentional, less ashamed to look at numbers, more willing to plan, more willing to sow, more willing to create, more willing to ask for the value of your work, more willing to release what no longer serves your assignment. That is why biblical wealth is never just mystical. It becomes behavioral. You start noticing what you used to ignore. You stop feeding what drains you. You move from vague hope to precise action. You stop making agreement with lack every time pressure rises. And yes, if you like the language of faith and quantum physics, this is where the metaphor becomes powerful. Your attention changes outcomes because attention changes behavior. Your focus affects what possibilities you perceive, which decisions you make, what risks you avoid, what doors you recognize, and how consistently you act. That is not fantasy. That is lived reality. Scripture reshapes attention. Attention reshapes action. Action reshapes results. That is much closer to a real quantum prosperity formula than repeating empty phrases while ignoring your habits. So what do we do with Proverbs 3 practically? We stop treating it like decoration and start using it like daily code. In the morning, before your phone tells you what to fear, sit with the chapter. Slow down enough to let the words confront your default settings. Where are you leaning on your own understanding? Where are you operating from old evidence instead of present guidance? Where is fear posing as wisdom? Where has money become emotionally heavier than God? Then speak the passage out loud. Not because Hebrew syllables are magic, but because spoken truth recruits breath, sound, attention, and memory together. Your body hears what your mouth repeats. Your mind follows what you rehearse. A verse repeated with sincerity can interrupt an entire spiral of panic. And if you want a guided way to do that every day, I put together the Quantum Wealth Scripture Journal, 30 Days of Bible and Quantum Wealth Activations, with scripture, reflection, and practical money moves in one journal. It's there if you want structure for this process, and the link is in the description and first comment. Now here is something else Proverbs 3 does that most prosperity conversations skip completely. It talks about correction. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline. This matters because many people interpret every delay as rejection and every challenge as proof that abundance is not for them. But sometimes what feels like deprivation is actually recalibration. Sometimes the closed door is protecting you from an expensive distraction. Sometimes the frustration is exposing a weakness in your thinking that prosperity would only amplify. If you carry unmanaged fear into increase, more money will not free you, it will magnify you. So discipline is mercy. Correction is mercy. Conviction is mercy. Because God does not merely want to give you more. He wants to make you stable enough that more does not destroy your peace. That is why Proverbs 3 keeps turning toward wisdom. It says wisdom is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. Better returns. Think about that. Scripture is not anti-wealth, it is anti-foolishness. Wisdom produces returns that panic cannot. Wisdom knows when to wait, when to move, when to say no, when to build, when to cut, when to save, when to sow, when to stop pretending. This is where many people miss the real abundance Bible code. They want sudden money without deeper wisdom. But wisdom is the mechanism that makes provision sustainable. Imagine two people receiving the same increase. One has no internal order. They celebrate, relax too early, avoid planning, numb anxiety with spending, and call it blessing. The other has allowed Proverbs 3 to reshape their inner life. They honor first. They review clearly. They remove leaks. They invest intentionally. They create margin. They remain generous. Externally, both got more. Internally, only one was prepared for more. That is the difference between a moment of increase and a life of provision. And if this channel has become part of your prayer, study, and renewal rhythm, joining the membership is a quiet way to help support the work here. I'm deeply grateful for that support, and members also receive early access to videos, which lets this message reach people in a more rooted way. Now let's go even deeper into the inner mechanics. Proverbs 3 is constantly moving you from fragmentation into coherence. Trust, acknowledge, honor, receive correction, pursue wisdom. That sequence matters. It is not random. It is showing you how a human being becomes aligned. Trust heals inner division. Acknowledgement brings God into practical decisions. Honor reorders resources. Discipline increases capacity. Wisdom governs the whole system. That is why people who live in chronic scarcity often feel tired even before they act. Their internal world is running too many competing scripts at once. Believe for more, but expect disappointment. Give but panic. Dream but self-protect. Ask but apologize. Work hard, but assume it will fail. Those contradictions are expensive. Proverbs 3 simplifies the system. It teaches one integrated posture. Let your inner world agree with divine reality, then let your actions follow. Here is a simple daily protocol you can begin today. Read Proverbs 3 slowly and stop at the line that unsettles you most. Name the fear thought that line exposes. Replace it with the scriptural truth in your own words. Take one financial action that agrees with the truth, however small. Repeat tomorrow. That action could be reviewing your expenses without shame. It could be sending the proposal you have delayed. It could be setting aside your first portion intentionally. It could be canceling the thing that keeps draining your peace. It could be asking God for strategy instead of begging only for rescue. It could be creating before consuming. It could be resting long enough to hear clearly. This is where manifest money biblical teaching becomes either dangerous fantasy or grounded transformation. If manifestation means pretending reality does not exist, reject it. But if it means bringing your internal agreement, spoken confession, emotional posture, and practical action into alignment with truth, then Proverbs 3 is full of it, not empty hype, embodied alignment. And that is why this chapter has survived generation after generation, because it understands humans better than humans understand themselves. We are shaped by what we trust, directed by what we acknowledge, stabilized by what we honor, matured by what we endure, rewarded by the wisdom we practice. If this is opening something up for you, take a second to like the video so more people can find it. And tell me in the comments what part of Proverbs 3 is speaking most directly to your life right now. I read those, and they help shape what we build here together. And if you want more teachings that connect scripture, mindset, and real-world stewardship without the fluff, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to break agreement with lack. Let me leave you with this. Proverbs 3 does not promise magic. It offers alignment. It does not say, ignore reality. It says, stop enthroning fear as reality's final interpreter. It does not say, chase wealth. It says, become the kind of person whose inner life can carry God's provision with peace. So the real question is not only, how do I get more? The deeper question is, what am I rehearsing every day that either resists or receives provision? Because your life will keep moving in the direction of your deepest agreements. If you keep agreeing with panic, you will call survival wisdom. If you keep agreeing with shame, you will hide from stewardship. If you keep agreeing with lack, you will overlook the doors already near you. So tonight, before you sleep, read Proverbs 3 again. Not as a nice chapter, not as a memory verse, not as a superstition. Read it like code. And ask yourself, what would change in my finances, my decisions, and my peace if I truly stopped leaning on my own fear-shaped understanding? That question might be the doorway to everything.